I should probably start by saying something obvious. Everyone downloads random files from the internet. Mods for games, cracked software, weird little utilities someone swears will make your computer faster. Videos, archives, files that appear in forums posted by usernames you'll never see again. If you've spent enough time online, you've done it too. Click, download, open. Most of the time, nothing happens. Sometimes you get malware. Sometimes your antivirus screams at you. Sometimes your PC slows down for a few hours and then you forget about it. That's what I thought would happen that night. I was browsing a small forum, one of those quiet corners of the internet where people post obscure programs and tools that nobody really understands, but everyone pretends they do. And there was this thread. The title wasn't dramatic. It didn't scream for attention. It just said something simple. This file fixes broken data. But curiosity got the better of me. I clicked the download link. The file name was normal enough. Just a small executable. A few megabytes. I downloaded it, ran it, and then nothing. No installation screen. No warning message. No pop-up window asking for permissions. The program just opened for half a second and closed. That was it. I actually remember laughing. I thought it was some kind of lazy joke. But about 5 minutes later, my computer did something strange. My files started changing. Not deleting. Not corrupting. Challenging. At first it was subtle. A folder name flickered. Then another. I thought maybe Windows was refreshing the directory. But then I watched one of the folders slowly rewrite itself. Letter by letter. Like someone typing. The name shifted, morphed, corrected itself. Until it said something new. You shouldn't have opened this. I remember leaning closer to the screen, smiling nervously. Because obviously it was a prank. Right. Some stupid script designed to mess with people. Malware trying to be clever. But then a new file appeared on my desktop. I hadn't downloaded it. I hadn't created it. It just appeared. A video file. And the timestamp on it made my stomach drop. The file was dated 3 days in the future. Its name was simple. YOUWATCHTHISDOLATE. MP4. I stared at it for a long time before I clicked it. And I need you to understand something. I wish I never opened that video. Because once you see what I saw, you start noticing it everywhere. And the worst part, the link that started all of this looked completely normal. Let me tell you where I found it. The link didn't come from some dark web marketplace or a shady torrent site. It came from a forum I had been browsing for years. One of those small, slow-moving communities where people share weird little programs, experiment with obscure software, and argue about operating systems like it's still 2007. Nothing about the place ever felt dangerous. Half the users there were probably hobby programmers. The other half were just bored people who liked tinkering with things. The thread itself didn't look special either. It wasn't pinned. It didn't have thousands of views. In fact, when I clicked it, the post count said 12 replies. That's it. The title read, "This file fixes broken data." The original post was only 2 sentences long. No explanation. No introduction. Just a small block of text and a download link. The message said, "If your files start remembering things wrong, use this." Below it was the link I downloaded. And that was it. No instructions. No description of what the program did. No version number. Just a username I'd never seen before. I remember thinking it looked like some kind of joke. Maybe an ARG. People on that forum loved doing weird puzzles and creepy experiments to mess with each other. So I scrolled down to read the replies. The first comment was normal. Someone asked what the program actually did. The second reply just said, "Did anyone else's photos change?" At the time, I thought they were playing along with the joke. But then I kept reading. Another user wrote, "I ran it and my documents updated themselves." Someone else replied under that comment, "Same. Old files came back." And then the next line made me pause. Some of them have things in them I don't remember writing. I remember leaning back in my chair at that point. It was starting to feel like an elaborate roleplay thread. You know, the kind where everyone pretends something creepy is happening. But the comments kept getting stranger. One user said their computer restored a folder they deleted 2 years ago. Another claimed their family photos had extra people in the background. One comment was only 5 words long. "Don't open the video it creates." That one actually made me laugh. Because now it felt obvious. This whole thing was just some horror-themed internet puzzle. The kind where the program does something weird and people pretend it's supernatural. Then I reached the last message posted by the original uploader. It was written hours after the thread started. And it said something very simple. If it starts rewriting things, unplug your router. That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. Just that sentence. Looking back now, that was probably the moment I should have closed the thread. Any normal person would have. But curiosity is a stupid thing. Especially online. You see a dozen people talking about something strange, and suddenly you want to see it for yourself. So I scrolled back to the top, hovered my cursor over the download link, and clicked it. The file downloaded almost instantly. The name was exactly what you'd expect from some random utility. Vixiervals. Alexi. No strange characters. No hidden extensions. Just a plain executable file sitting in my downloads folder. I remember staring at it for a moment. Part of me still thought it might actually be malware. But the forum had a reputation for sharing legitimate tools. Besides, if it was a joke program, I wanted to see how it worked. How it changed the files. How the trick was done. So I double-clicked it. The program opened for less than a second. A black command prompt flashed onto the screen. And in that brief moment, a single line of text appeared. Accessing memory structures. Then the window closed. No installation. No program folder. Nothing. The file deleted itself from my downloads directory. And for a few minutes, everything seemed perfectly normal. Until my computer started fixing things I didn't know were broken. At first, nothing happened. After the command prompt vanished, my desktop looked exactly the same. Same wallpaper. Same folders. Same cluttered row of icons I'd been meaning to organize for months. I actually checked my downloads folder just to be sure. The program was gone. Not moved. Not quarantined. Just gone. For a moment, I assumed it had been some kind of self-deleting joke program. Something designed to flash a fake message and then disappear to make people paranoid. I shrugged and went back to browsing. A few minutes passed. Maybe 5. Maybe 10. Then my computer refreshed. You know the way Windows sometimes reloads the desktop icons. Everything flickers for half a second and rearranges itself slightly before settling again. That's what it looked like. Except it kept happening. Refresh. Pause. Refresh. At first I blamed Windows Explorer. It crashes sometimes, especially if you have too many folders open. But then I noticed something strange. My Documents folder had opened itself. I hadn't clicked it. The window just appeared on the screen like it had always been there. I stared at it for a moment, confused, before assuming maybe I had accidentally pressed something on the keyboard. Inside the folder, all my old files were sitting exactly where they should be. Essays, screenshots, random PDFs, old game mods I never deleted. And then the folder refreshed again. This time something changed. One of the files moved. Not dramatically. It didn't fly across the screen or anything. It simply slid a few spaces down the list. Like something invisible had reorganized it. I leaned forward in my chair. Another refresh. This time the timestamp on one of the documents changed. A file I hadn't opened in years suddenly displayed a last modified time from about 30 seconds ago. That was weird enough to make me uneasy. I right-clicked the file to check its properties. Before the window could even open, the folder refreshed again. 2 more files updated their timestamps. Then another, and another. It looked like someone was editing them rapidly in the background. Except nothing was opening. No applications. No Word documents. No background processes I could see. Just silent updates. And then something new appeared in the directory. A folder I had never created before. Its name was simple. Recovered Files. I'm not going to lie, I actually felt a little excited at that moment. Because if this was part of the prank program from the forum, it was a clever one. Maybe it scanned the hard drive and restored deleted files. Maybe that was the whole gimmick. Curious, I opened the folder. Inside were dozens of files. Old photos, documents, text files. Some of them dated back years. Things I definitely remember deleting. One file caught my eye immediately. An old text document from high school. I recognized the name instantly. It was an essay I wrote when I was 16. Something about historical myths or urban legends. I don't remember exactly. But I knew I had deleted it a long time ago. I double-clicked the file. It opened instantly. And at first, everything looked exactly the way I remembered. The same sloppy formatting. The same paragraphs I had written half asleep the night before it was due. But when I scrolled to the bottom of the page, something felt wrong. The essay ended the way it always had. But below the final paragraph was another line. Just one. It wasn't part of the assignment. It wasn't even written in the same font. It looked like it had been added recently. The sentence read, "You will notice the changes soon." I stared at the screen, waiting for the punchline. Waiting for the program to reveal itself. But nothing happened. No pop-ups. No creepy sound effect. Just that sentence sitting there quietly beneath something I had written almost a decade earlier. Then the document refreshed, and the text began to move. At first I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The document flickered, the way files sometimes do when autosave kicks in or when a cloud sync refreshes the page. The cursor blinked once near the bottom of the S, even though I hadn't touched the keyboard. Then a word disappeared. Just one. A sentence in the middle of the paragraph shifted slightly, like the line had been edited and the spacing corrected itself. I froze. Another word changed. Not deleted. Challenged. Letters rearranged themselves, slowly, almost carefully, until the sentence meant something completely different than what I remembered writing. My first instinct was that Microsoft Word had glitched somehow. Maybe the file had been corrupted during recovery. Maybe the program was trying to repair it and displaying the changes live. But that explanation didn't last long, because the edits kept happening, one sentence after another, entire paragraphs rewriting themselves while I watched. It didn't look random. That's the part that made my stomach tight. Random corruption produces nonsense. Broken symbols. Jumbled letters. This wasn't that. The words were being replaced with something deliberate. Something structured. The essay I had written about myths and folklore slowly began transforming into something else entirely. I watched an entire paragraph vanish and reappear as a new block of text. The font remained the same. The formatting stayed identical. But the message had changed. It now reads, "You installed the correction tool." I felt a small laugh escape my throat. A nervous one. Okay, I thought. This is part of the prank. A scripted effect. The program must have been designed to edit text files to scare people. But then the next line appeared. You noticed the discrepancies. I didn't type anything. My hands were still in my lap. The cursor blinked again. More words formed beneath the sentence. Your files were inaccurate. I leaned closer to the screen. What does that even mean? I muttered out loud. The document didn't respond immediately. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the text shifted again. Another line formed slowly, as if someone were typing it from the other side of the computer. We are fixing them. I remember staring at that sentence longer than I probably should have. Part of me still wanted to believe it was just clever coding. Maybe the program searched through documents and inserted per-written lines to create the illusion of a conversation. But if that was true, it shouldn't have known when I spoke. Because right after I whispered, "Fixing what?" under my breath, the cursor moved again. A final sentence appeared. The inaccuracies. A cold feeling crept up my spine. I closed the document window. Immediately. Too quickly. Like someone slamming a door after hearing a noise outside. The desktop appeared again. Everything looked normal. For about 3 seconds. Then the folder refreshed, and another file changed its name. The letters shifted one by one until the title read something different than before. Check your videos. I felt my stomach drop slightly, because suddenly I remembered the file sitting quietly on my desktop. The one that had appeared out of nowhere. The one with the timestamp from 3 days in the future. I hadn't touched it yet. I had been too distracted by the strange folder and the rewritten document. But now my eyes moved back to the desktop. And there it was, still sitting exactly where it had appeared earlier. The name hadn't changed. The date still read 3 days ahead of the current time. YOUWATCHTHISDORT. MP4. For a long moment, I didn't move. Because suddenly, that warning from the forum thread echoed in the back of my mind. Don't open the video it creates. I should have listened. Instead, I double-clicked the file. When the video opened, the first thing I noticed was the resolution. It was perfect. Not blurries. Not compressed. Not the kind of quality you expect from a random file that just appears on your desktop. It looked exactly like a screen recording, captured directly from my own computer. Which at first didn't seem that strange, until I realized what I was looking at. The video showed my desktop. The same wallpaper. The same cluttered icons. The same half-finished folder organization I had been ignoring for weeks. It was identical to the screen sitting in front of me. For a few seconds, I thought maybe the program had just recorded my screen earlier and saved the clip automatically. But then the cursor in the video moved. Not the cursor on my real screen. the cursor inside the video. It drifted slowly across the desktop like someone was controlling the computer. Opening folders, scrolling through files, typing. Meanwhile, my real mouse sat perfectly still under my hand. A strange feeling started creeping into my chest. The kind of quiet unease you feel when something almost makes sense, but not quite. Then the video zoomed in. Not with a camera movement, but with a digital crop. The recording focused on the bottom corner of the desktop. The clock. I leaned closer to the screen. Because the time displayed in the video was wrong. Not just slightly wrong. The date was 3 days ahead of the current day. Exactly the same timestamp that had been written on the file. My throat felt dry. I paused the video for a second just to check my system clock. Then I resumed playback. The cursor in the video opened a folder labeled Recovered Files. Inside were the same documents I had just seen moments ago. But the recording continued past that point. The cursor opened more directories. Folders that didn't exist on my computer yet. Names I had never seen before. Correction logs. Memory archive. Pending changes. The video continued navigating deeper through the folders. Like someone searching for something. Then suddenly the screen changed. The recording switched from desktop capture to something else. Webcam footage. I felt a sharp jolt in my stomach. Because the camera was pointed directly at a desk. My desk. The same room. The same chair. The same shelves behind me. And sitting in front of the computer was me. Or at least someone who looked exactly like me. Same hoodie, same messy hair, same tired expression I probably had right now. Except the timestamp in the corner of the recording still showed the date from 3 days in the future. The future version of me leaned forward slightly. His eyes looked tired, worried, like someone who hadn't slept properly in days. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just stared into the screen. Into me. Then he spoke. If you're watching this early, stop. The words came out quiet, almost like a whisper. Delete the program. He rubbed his face slowly. His hands were shaking. Don't let it finish correcting. The video cut abruptly. For a split second, the screen went black. Then another recording appeared. This time it wasn't webcam footage. It was another desktop screen. But something about it was different. The wallpaper was gone. The desktop looked almost empty, like the computer had been wiped, except for one folder sitting in the center of the screen. The name was written in capital letters. Ariel Ituabiasakp. The cursor in the video opened the folder. Inside were thousands of files, more than I could count. Rows and rows of folders stacked across the window, each labeled with strange titles. Person 001, Person 002, Person 003. The list kept going. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Another directory sat beneath them. Event 1922, Event 1923, Event 1924. Dates stretching backward through history. Then another folder appeared. EMIAMORYARCHIV. The cursor hovered over it for a long moment before opening it. Inside were video files, audio logs, text documents, each one labeled with names and timestamps. Moments, events, fragments of people's lives. The cursor scrolled endlessly through them. And then it stopped. The video paused on a single file. The name made my stomach twist. MYNA MP4. The cursor hovered over it didn't click. Instead, the screen recording zoomed out slightly. And for the first time, I noticed something written at the top of the window. A line of text I hadn't seen before. Correction status in progress. My chest felt tight, because suddenly a horrible thought started forming in my mind. The program hadn't been fixing files on my computer. It had been fixing something else. Something bigger. Something far beyond my hard drive. I stared at the video window, trying to process what I was seeing. Trying to convince myself it was still just some elaborate prank. But then the screen changed again. The recording returned to the webcam footage. Future me was back in the chair. This time he looked even more exhausted. He leaned closer to the camera and whispered something that made my blood run cold. It's not fixing files. He swallowed slowly. It's correcting reality. The video ended. Just like that. No credits. No explanation. Just a frozen frame of my own face staring at the screen from 3 days in the future. For several seconds, I didn't move. Then I tried to do the one thing that felt logical. I tried to delete the file. Deleting the video should have been easy. Right-click, delete, empty the recycle bin. Problem solved. At least that's what I thought. I closed the video player and went back to the desktop. The file sat there exactly where it had been before, the name still staring at me like some kind of warning. YOUWATCHTHISDOIT. MP4. My mouse hovered over it for a moment before I clicked. Right-click. Delete. The file disappeared instantly. For half a second, I actually felt relieved. Then the desktop refreshed, and the video came back. Same name, same timestamp, same place on the screen. My chest tightened. I tried again. Right-click, delete, gone, refresh, back, the exact same way it had been before. I stared at it for a moment, trying to convince myself it was just some weird Windows bug. Maybe the file was being restored from some hidden system directory. Maybe the prank program had created a script that regenerated it every time it was removed. That explanation felt comforting enough to try something else. I opened the file's properties. The Details tab should have shown the file path, the creation date, maybe the software that recorded it. Instead, most of the fields were blank. No author. No device information. The only visible detail was the timestamp. 3 days from now. My throat felt dry. So I did the next logical thing. I disconnected the internet. I reached behind my desk, unplugged the router cable, and waited. The connection icon on my screen changed immediately. No internet access. Good. If the program was pulling files from somewhere online, that should stop it. For a minute or two, nothing happened. I actually started to relax. Then my Documents folder opened again by itself. I hadn't clicked anything. The window simply appeared. The file list refreshed. New folders began appearing one by one, each one popping into existence like it had always been there. The first folder read, Incorrect Memories. The second one, Pending Corrections. The third folder made my stomach drop, because it had my name on it. ABUBAKIRCASC. I didn't move for a long time. I just stared at it. There's something uniquely unsettling about seeing your own name in places it shouldn't be, especially when you know you didn't put it there. Eventually, curiosity won again. It always does. I opened the folder. Inside were dozens of files. Documents, images, videos, all labeled with dates. Some from my childhood, some from years I barely remembered. The first file I opened was a simple text document. It began with a line that made my hands feel cold. Subject profile, ABUBAK. Below it was a timeline. My timeline. Birth date, school records, old addresses, events from my life. Some of them were small things I had almost forgotten about. A broken phone from when I was 17. The first time I failed an exam. The day my family moved houses. The details were precise. Too precise. Like someone had documented my life with perfect accuracy. Then I noticed something strange further down the document. The events started to change. The dates remained the same, but the descriptions were different from what I remembered. In one version, I never moved to my current house. In another, I dropped out of school a year earlier. One entry stopped my breathing for a moment. Age 22, termination event. I scrolled back up immediately. My heart was beating faster now. I opened another document. This one contained images, photographs from my phone, family pictures, vacation photos, except some of them were wrong. People were missing. In one photo, my cousin wasn't standing next to me anymore. In another, an entire chair at the dinner table was empty, like someone had erased a person from the frame. My head started feeling light. Because the more files I opened, the more variations I found. Different versions of the same moments. Different outcomes. Different histories. Some versions of my life looked almost identical to the one I remembered. Others didn't. And that's when the worst thought finally settled into my mind. These weren't backups. They were corrections. Different possible versions of my life. And the program was choosing one. I closed the folder slowly, my hands shaking slightly. Because if what I had just seen was real, then something on my computer was rewriting my past. And I had absolutely no idea what version of me it was trying to create. For a while, I just sat there staring at the folder. ABUBAKIRCASC. My own name looked wrong on the screen now, like it didn't belong there. Like it had been written by someone who knew me too well. I closed the window and leaned back in my chair, trying to slow my breathing. None of this made sense. Programs don't create alternate histories. They don't generate entire timelines of someone's life. Even the most advanced software couldn't fabricate the kind of details I had just seen in those files. And yet the folders were still there. Waiting, updating, challenging. I needed to understand what the program was doing. So I reopened the video file. The one from the future. YOUWATCHTHISDOT. MP4. This time I didn't watch the beginning. I skipped forward to the part where the screen recording showed those strange directories. The folders labeled Person 001, Person 002, stretching endlessly. Then the folders named after historical events. And finally, the one labeled REALITYBCKUP. I paused the video and studied the screen carefully. Something I had missed earlier stood out now. At the top corner of the window was a small panel I hadn't noticed before. A progress indicator. It looked like a loading bar. Next to it were two words. Correction progress. The bar wasn't empty. It was partially filled. Roughly halfway. My stomach sank. I resumed the video and watched more closely. Every time the cursor inside the recording opened a folder, something happened. Files shifted. New entries appeared. The progress bar moved forward slightly, only a few percent at a time. But it moved. And that's when the pattern finally clicked. The files weren't just being edited. They were being synchronized. The program was comparing something on my computer to the archive in that massive directory. And every time it found something that didn't match, it corrected it. I remembered the lines from the document earlier. Your files were inaccurate. We are fixing them. My throat felt tight, because suddenly I realized something horrifying. Those files weren't just files. They were records, memories, events, moments from people's lives. The program wasn't fixing my hard drive. It was aligning reality with the archive. I opened my phone and scrolled through my photo gallery. At first, everything looked normal. Then I stopped on a picture from last year, a group photo from a family gathering. I knew that picture. I remembered exactly where everyone had been standing. Except now one person was missing. There was empty space where someone should have been. My chest tightened. I scrolled to another photo. Another difference. A background object that used to be there was gone, like it had never existed. My memories felt fuzzy. Not completely wrong, just slightly off, like someone had nudged them a few inches to the side. That's when I noticed the document's folder updating again. The timestamp on ABUBAKRCASC changed. The file refreshed. I opened it slowly. The timeline had been updated. New lines had appeared. Events shifting. Details changing. And at the top of the document, a new message had been written. Subject identified as inconsistent. Beneath it was another line. Correction required. My hands felt cold. Because if the system believed my life was inconsistent, then it meant something even worse. It meant I wasn't supposed to exist the way I currently did. I opened the video one more time, paused it on the moment where my future self looked into the camera. The tired expression, the shaking hands, the warning, don't let it finish correcting. I finally understood what he meant. Because if the progress bar reached 100%, then whatever version of reality existed in that archive would replace the one I remembered. And judging by the files I had already seen, some versions of my life ended very differently. I swallowed slowly, staring at the progress indicator on the screen. It had moved again, just a little, but enough to make one thing painfully clear. Apparently, I was the error it was trying to fix. I tried shutting the computer down. Not a restart, not sleep mode, a full shutdown. The kind where the machine powers off completely and every process dies with it. I clicked the start menu, moved my cursor to the power icon, and pressed shut down. For a moment, the screen dimmed the way it normally does. The desktop faded. The monitor went black, and I thought that was it. Problem solved. Except the computer didn't turn off. The monitor flickered once. Then the desktop returned. Exactly the way it had been before. Same wallpaper. Same icons. Same folders. Except now there was one more file sitting on the screen. It hadn't been there before. I know that for a fact, because it was sitting right in the middle of the desktop, almost like it wanted to be noticed. The file name was short, FINALCORRECTION. MP4. My chest tightened. I didn't click it immediately. Instead, I opened the task manager. Every program running on the system appeared exactly the way it should. Browser, File Explorer, Video Player. Nothing unusual. No unknown processes. No strange applications using the CPU. It was like the program that started all this had never existed. But the file was still there, waiting. Eventually, curiosity won again. It always does. I opened the video. The recording started instantly. This time it wasn't a screen capture. It was webcam footage again. The same angle as before. The same room. The same desk. Except something was wrong. At first I couldn't figure out what it was. Then I noticed the walls. Several photos were missing. The small shelf behind the chair looked empty. A few objects I kept there were gone. Like the room had slowly forgotten they were supposed to exist. Then the person in the chair moved. Future me leaned forward into the frame. His face looked worse than before. Paler, more exhausted, like someone who had been running out of time. For a few seconds, he didn't speak. He just stared into the camera. Then he whispered, "It's already started." His voice sounded strange. Quiet, like he was afraid something might hear him. Behind him, the computer screen flickered. For a moment, I could see the same folder window from the previous recording. The one labeled REA Alituabiasaki. But now the progress bar at the top was almost full. Future me rubbed his eyes slowly. "You didn't stop it." He swallowed hard. "I tried everything." His gaze shifted slightly, like he was looking at something off-screen. Then he leaned closer to the camera. His voice dropped even lower. "Listen carefully. Don't upload the story." My heart skipped a beat, because I realized he wasn't talking to himself. He was talking to me, to whoever's watching this. He continued, "If other people download it." He hesitated, like he didn't want to finish the sentence. But eventually he did. "They'll start correcting too." The room behind him flickered again. This time something else disappeared from the wall. One of the empty spaces where a photo should have been expanded slightly. Like the memory of it had been erased entirely. Future me noticed it too. His shoulders dropped. "It's spreading," he said quietly. "Every correction creates another inconsistency." He looked directly into the camera again. And for the first time, I noticed something terrifying in his expression. Acceptance. Like he already knew the outcome. There's only one way to slow it down. He paused. Then he whispered the final warning. "Don't let anyone else find the file." The video froze. The progress bar in the background reached the very end. And the recording cut to black. For a long moment, I just sat there staring at the screen. Because suddenly, I understood something that made my stomach twist. If the program spread through downloads, if every new user started another correction, then the archive would keep expanding. More people, more timelines, more changes. And if that was true, then telling this story might be the worst mistake I could possibly make. I didn't listen. Of course I didn't. Curiosity is a curse. It always has been. The first few hours after watching FINALCORMCTIO MP4, I kept checking the folders. ABUBAKIRCASC. Recovered files. Pending corrections. My hands trembled every time I opened them. Every refresh brought more subtle changes. Lines shifting in documents. Letters moving in text files. Even photo metadata rewriting itself. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I had been sleep deprived. Maybe it was a virus masquerading as something more sinister. A hallucination induced by too much screen time. But rational thought quickly crumbled. Because then the video appeared again. Not downloaded, not generated by me. Just there. On my desktop, this time the file had a new name. WRNINGYOIGNOIT. MP4. I didn't open it immediately. My hands hovered over the mouse for what felt like hours. But eventually, the same twisted curiosity that started all this way. I double-clicked. The webcam footage began again. My future self, even paler this time, lined closer into the camera. His eyes looked almost hollow. He whispered, but the sound now had a strange distortion, like it was layered with something else, something wrong. "They've noticed you," he said. "Every correction, it tracks attention. Every click, every download, it knows." I tried to close the video. The window refused. Every attempt to exit simply minimized it and reopened it a second later. I tried dragging it to the recycle bin, gone, and instantly back. Then he said it. "The files are not just yours. They belong to everyone who interacts with the archive. Once you notice, you're linked. You're part of the correction network." The desktop flickered. Folders I hadn't seen before appeared, each labeled with the usernames of other forum members. Hundreds of names, some familiar, some I didn't recognize. My heart sank. It wasn't just me. The program wasn't just a tool. It wasn't even just a file. It was a system, a network, a digital organism correcting reality across anyone who came into contact with it. I tried shutting down again. Power off. Sleep mode. Nothing worked. The program ignored every command. And then I noticed something else. A folder labeled UNNOTICDRRORS. Inside, thousands of files, some with my name, some with names of other forum users, all with dates in the future, all already changed. I felt my stomach twist as I realized what I had ignored for hours, the warning from the first video. Don't let it finish correcting. It had already started, and I hadn't stopped it. Because by the time I understood the rules, the network had begun linking everyone who even saw it. Every download, every comment on that forum, every curious observer, every person like me had unknowingly become a node. And now it was waiting for the next mistake. I glanced at my desktop again. The file was there, watching, waiting, smiling almost. YOUWATCHTHISDLAT. MP4. I understood them fully. Once you see it, there's no going back. And every second I linger, every click, every hesitation makes the correction move faster. Because that's the rule I discovered too late. Once reality notices you, it starts correcting. And there's no stopping it. I spent hours that night trying to fight it. Hours watching the folders, tracking changes, trying to understand what triggered the corrections. Every document I opened, every image I glanced at seemed to accelerate the process. Every time I touched a file, the program responded. I even tried creating backups. Copies of ABUBAKRCASC. Copies of recovered files. Copies of everything. I thought if I could isolate them, maybe I could escape its reach. It didn't work. The copies changed too. Files I hadn't touched were rewritten. Their timestamps updated. Subtle shifts in text, minor alterations in images, small, unnerving changes that hinted at versions of reality I hadn't lived. I tried removing my hard drive, pulling it out, placing it in another machine, a clean system. It followed. I watched folders replicate themselves onto the new computer. Documents appeared as if carried by some invisible hand, rearranging themselves in real time. The same line that had haunted me before. Your files are inconsistent. I couldn't understand how. How could a simple program, one file downloaded from a random forum, do this. I tried erasing the system entirely, formatting the drives, reinstalling the operating system. The moment the new desktop appeared, the file was already there. Waiting. YOUWATCHTHISTOLAT. MP4. It didn't matter what I did. Power cycling. Safe mode. Nothing. It returned. I remember sitting back in my chair, exhausted, my head resting against the wall. For a long time, I just stared at the screen. Then, in a moment of desperation, I tried the one thing I hadn't dared before. I opened the file again. I thought maybe if I understood it fully, I could predict its behavior, maybe trick it into stopping. The webcam footage started. My future self appeared, more hollow than before. His eyes glimmered with exhaustion, with fear, with a resignation I couldn't comprehend. "This is the last chance," he whispered. "You need to undo it. You need to stop interacting with the files. Delete the program. Hide it. Never let it propagate." I closed the video. Clicked the file once. Right-clicked. Attempted to delete. It resisted. The screen flickered. A new folder appeared on my desktop, UNDOATT. Inside were dozens of files. Copies of the original archive, but now the timestamps were changing in real time. Each document looked like a live feed of my past, my present, and versions of the future I hadn't experienced. I tried one last thing. I dragged the video, the program, everything into the folder. Tried deleting the folder. It disappeared, then returned, with a new name. CORRECTIONIMPROGRSS. The message inside the folder read simply, "Stopping now will make things worse. Continue or accept your errors." My hands shook, because I understood exactly what that meant. The only way to undo the program was to let it finish, to accept the correction, to let reality itself overwrite me, my memories, my life, until the archive decided what version of me should exist. And I couldn't. Not yet. Because every second that passed, every folder that flickered, every subtle shift in my documents reminded me, once it notices you, it doesn't stop. I leaned back in my chair and whispered under my breath, "I shouldn't have clicked the link." And deep down, I knew it was too late. The progress bar was moving. Slowly, deliberately. Closer, closer, to 100%. And I had no choice but to watch. By the next morning, I barely recognized my desktop. Folders I hadn't seen before sprawled across the screen like a map of every decision I'd ever made and every decision I hadn't. ABUBAKIRCASC. Recovered files. Pending corrections. UNDOATTMPT. And others I didn't even dare click on. Names that felt vaguely familiar, usernames from forums long forgotten. Every single one seemed to pulse with a quiet urgency. I sat there staring. My computer felt alive, watching me, judging, calculating. Then I realized something terrifying. It already knew me. Not just my files, not just my documents or my photos. It knew my patterns, my habits, the way I hesitated before clicking, the way I scrolled through folders, the way I opened files in a certain order. Every interaction I had with the archive made it smarter, faster, more deliberate. I tried to run a virus scan. It didn't work. The program wasn't a virus. It wasn't malware. It was something else entirely. Something beyond code. Something that existed wherever the files existed. And now I was part of it. Every move I made caused subtle changes. A photo flickered. A line in a document shifted. A folder renamed itself without warning. I tried telling myself it was a glitch, a hallucination, a dream, anything to preserve sanity. But then the last warning appeared. A text file one I hadn't seen before. Sitting alone on the desktop. It opened automatically. Once you notice, there's no escape. You are the arrows. You are the variable. The correction will continue with or without your consent. What? I felt cold, because I knew it was true. The program didn't just change files. It changed reality. It aligned it with its archive, and now I was part of the process. My choices, my memories, my very existence could be overwritten with a few keystrokes, or maybe no keystrokes at all. I stared at the file, unable to move. For the first time, I understood the truth behind the forum post. The link, the download, the warnings. They weren't jokes. They weren't tests. They were instructions. A single step in a sequence that led to one outcome, total correction. And the worst part, I wasn't the first to notice it. I wouldn't be the last. Every curious mind, every click, every download, all feeding into the network. And all it took was one file. One simple, ordinary file. That knew more than it should. That knew you. I closed my eyes and leaned back. Because deep down, I already knew the next step. There was no delaying it. There was no escape. Once it sees you, once it knows you, you are the correction. And reality doesn't forgive. I should have stopped. I should have walked away from the screen, closed the laptop, and pretended I never saw the forum post. Pretended I never clicked the link. Pretended I didn't watch the video from the future. But I didn't. Curiosity always wins. And now I can't undo it. Every file I open, every folder I hover over, every document I glance at, it changes. Slowly, carefully, deliberately, like reality itself is reshaping around me. My memories, my past, my present, even small details in my room, the way the light falls on the desk, the placement of objects, start shifting without my intervention. Sometimes I catch myself staring at something familiar and realizing it never existed the way I remember. A chair that should be in the corner is gone. A photo on the wall disappears. A line in a document that was there yesterday rewritten. The program doesn't stop. It doesn't rest. It corrects, aligns, updates. And each correction drags me further into it. I tried telling someone about it. Posting a warning online. Sharing a screenshot. I shouldn't have. Because I realized the moment I hit send that the file had already linked me into its system. Every curious observer becomes a node. Every click feeds the archive. And that's why I don't share it anymore. Why I'm speaking now, softly, carefully, in a whisper. I can't risk anyone else noticing. Once you see it, once you open the link, reality begins correcting you. And there's no stopping it. I keep my laptop open most of the time now. I hover over the files. I watch them shift and change. It's exhausting. It's terrifying. It's impossible to ignore. Sometimes I see versions of myself in the video files. Sitting at the same desk. Lining over the keyboard. Watching the desktop flicker with names and folders I don't remember creating. And I know they are me's. Or they will be's. Or maybe they already are. I wish I never clicked that link. I wish I had stopped at the forum. I wish I had never seen the video. Because once you notice, once you allow it into your system, you are never free. The correction continues, and it will never end. If you're curious if you've ever stumbled across a strange forum post, a weird download, or a file that seems out of place, don't. Don't click. Don't open it. Because reality is watching. And once it says you belong to it. I speak these words as a warning, not as a story, not as entertainment. I speak them because I wish someone had warned me. I wish I had listened. I wish I never clicked. And now I wait. Because every second I linger, every document I open, every flicker of my desktop moves the correction forward. Closer, closer, to 100%. And I have no choice but to watch.